There was a time when my house was full of life, with voices calling out to me, with hugs that made me feel like I mattered. But little by little, those voices faded. My family stopped reaching out, leaving me completely alone, like I'd become invisible. I thought that was it for me, that my story was over. Then one ordinary day, someone I barely knew knocked on my door with a warm plate of food. That small, almost insignificant gesture cracked open a piece of my heart. And through that crack, life found a way to slip back in. You know you've lost your place in the world when you start keeping track of the days by the sound of the garbage truck. On Mondays, it comes at 7 a.m. Wednesdays are for recycling. And Saturdays, the gardener's truck. That's the only thing that changes in my routine. I used to have a purpose. Mother, mother-in-law, grandmother, advisor. Miss Irene, as everyone used to call me. Now? The phone doesn't even ring. My family hasn't reached out in ages. I've been pushed aside for a long time, but something special happened to me recently. Something that changed the direction of my life. I moved to Willow Gardens 6 months ago, a residential community just outside San Diego, near Chula Vista. Small, noisy, full of young families, and far, far from where I used to matter. My house has 2 bedrooms. I only use one. The other is filled with boxes I keep promising to organize someday. One holds drawings my grandson made when he used to spend Saturdays with me. Another is full of James's things, my husband's watches, mechanic books, and his scent still clinging to neatly folded clothes. And the one that hurts the most, the box with Mother's Day cards, birthday notes, and "We love you, Grandma" messages. The ones that stopped coming without warning, like I had simply stopped existing. The house next door belongs to the Morales family. Latinos, loud, overly affectionate. I never asked where they're from. It doesn't matter. The woman, Elena, sings while she hangs laundry. Her husband, Ernesto, is always fixing something in the yard. The kids, Luna, 7, and Mateo, 5, are always playing on the sidewalk with chalk, bikes, and that energy only childhood has. It's like a scene out of a telenovela. It stings to see so much joy so close. Like happiness is walking right past my porch and choosing not to come in. Today is Mother's Day. I had forgotten until I heard Elena say to Luna, "Grandma Lita is coming for lunch today. We're making arroz con pollo." I opened the drawer where I keep my phone. No missed calls, no messages, not even a silly Happy Mother's Day sticker from the family group chat. Nothing. I got dressed as if someone were coming over. Light blue blouse, pearl earrings, perfume I bought at the airport on a trip to visit my sister. I looked in the mirror, then I sat down to wait. I wasn't sure what for, but I waited anyway. James used to say that the pain of being forgotten is heavier than the pain of loss. It took me years to understand that. He died 12 years ago. Heart attack on a Tuesday morning, drinking coffee and reading the newspaper. No drama, just a strange silence in the kitchen. And then, the rest of life stayed quiet too. In the first few years, my house was full. My grandkid came every weekend. I made pancakes, oatmeal, told Snow White stories with a British accent because it made him laugh. But slowly, things changed. First, my son started saying, "This month is really hectic, Mom." Then his new wife started talking about boundaries, space, healthy distance. One day, they said Christmas would be at her place, because there's more room for everyone. It was never held at my house again. Here's what. No one tells you. You don't stop mattering all at once. They slowly pull your seat away, until one day you realize you're not at the table anymore. You're just in the picture frame. Have you ever experienced something like Irene's story? Have you ever felt like her? If you feel comfortable, share your story in the comments. Your voice may inspire and comfort other women. And don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next emotional story. When I saw little Luna drawing flowers with sidewalk chalk, I almost smiled. She saw me too. Waved. I looked away. Matteo taped a cardboard sign to their gate. Feliz dia, Mama. Crooked letters. Glitter everywhere. And I wondered if they even remembered I existed. I sat down at the table, ate cold soup, and a hard piece of bread that had been in the cupboard for days. I lit a candle, not for the mood, but to fight the darkness. At 7:45 p.m., someone knocked on my door. Soft taps, then silence. I opened it slowly. It was Elena, a gentle smile, kind eyes. In her hand, a deep dish covered by a white linen cloth. "We made too much," she said. "I thought maybe you'd like some." I don't know what irritated me most, the kindness or the pity behind it. I took the dish, didn't say thank you, closed the door quickly, as if I could shield myself from a gesture. In the kitchen, I lifted the cloth. Rice, golden chicken, the smell of garlic and cilantro. It was warm, fragrant, human. I threw it straight into the trash, out of pride, out of pain, out of a refusal to owe anyone anything. But at 11:15 p.m., hunger won. I got out of bed, went to the trash bin. The dish was still there, untouched, the cloth still clean. I took it, reheated it, ate, alone, in silence. And I cried, not from sadness, but because it was the first food made by someone who thought of me in a very, very long time. The next day, a paper flower appeared on my doorknob. It was purple, with the name Irene written in chalk. On the sidewalk, Matteo was drawing my cat Rufus lying in the sun. Too many details for someone who only sees me through the window. I didn't understand. I didn't ask for it. But a part of me, the part that still believes in connection, wanted to tuck that gesture away in a safe place. And that's when something inside me cracked. Like pottery splintering under hot water, a tiny fracture, barely visible, but enough to let something through. That afternoon, I came back from a walk, a silly attempt to give my morning's meaning, and found an envelope clipped to my mailbox. It was handmade, covered in stars and hearts. Inside was a note. "This Sunday, we're making tacos in the yard. Bring your empty plate and your appetite. Luna and Mama." I didn't understand why they did it. Didn't understand why now. But for some reason, that invitation weighed in my hands like a peace offering. I threw it away, out of habit. But when I took the trash out that night, I saw the envelope at the bottom of the bag. I took it out, dusted it off, and placed it in the drawer, the same one where I used to wait for calls that never came. And then I wondered, is this how life starts again? Not with big speeches, but with a rose con pollo and a handmade invitation? That Sunday, the sun lay lazily over the rooftops, turning everything gold. I watched from the window, with Luna's invitation still on the table. I ran my finger over the paper, feeling the raised letters drawn in colored pencil. "Bring your empty plate and your appetite." My plate had been empty for years. Appetite? I had one, but not for food. My name is Irene Caldwell. I'm 72. My skin is pale and thin, marked by time like the pages of an old book. My hair is gray, always pulled into a loose bun, more out of habit than vanity. My eyes are a calm gray blue, but they carry the weight of memories I wish I didn't have to revisit. I dress simply, in clothes that went out of style decades ago. Knee-length skirts, button-up blouses with rounded collars, and worn-out flats that are still holding on. I used to be a teacher, a wife, a mother. Now I'm just the lady from the corner house, a name that shows up on bills, but not on Christmas cards. A photo stuffed in the bottom drawer of my son's dresser. I stood there, staring at the street. The Morales gate was open. I could see plastic chairs, a table with a floral tablecloth, and an old radio playing boleros. Mateo ran barefoot. Luna was helping Elena set the table. I could smell the grilled meat, hear the voices overlapping. It was all so alive. Meanwhile, my house smelled like bleach and loneliness. I picked up the invitation, folded it gently, and placed it on the armchair. Then I opened the kitchen cupboard and chose a white plate with blue flowers around the edge. One of the few left from the set, James and I bought back in the 80s on a trip to Santa Barbara. I was going, not because I was hungry, but because of something deeper, like a plant that still tries to grow, even through concrete. As I crossed the street, Elena saw me first. Mrs. Irene. "I'm so glad you came." She spoke with such ease, like she'd been in my life for years. It felt strange, like I was stepping into a scene that wasn't mine. Mateo ran over and grabbed my hand. "Come sit. I made you a flower." Luna handed me a glass of lemonade. "Mama said you like homemade things." I sat down, quietly, trying not to take up too much space. But inside, I was completely out of place. The food was amazing. But it was the laughter that fed me the most. Elena talked with her hands. Ernesto laughed with his whole body. The kids climbed into my lap like it was where they belonged. And me, I let myself smile. For the first time in a long time. But all it took was one question for that new world to crack a little. "And your children, Mrs. Irene? Are they visiting today?" Elena asked it sweetly. No malice. But the pain came fast, like a punch to the stomach. I lowered my eyes, took a slow sip of lemonade. "They're busy," I said. I found a way to leave early. I thanked them for the food, the company, the kindness. Elena hugged me tight. It had been so long since someone hugged me like that. No reason, no ceremony. Back home, I sat in my armchair and let the silence return. But this time, it felt different, like it wasn't alone anymore. My grandson Ethan used to crawl into my bed with dirty feet. "Grandma, do the monster voice," he'd beg. And I would, and he'd laugh. He was my biggest fan, my whole world. When my son remarried, the visits started to fade. His new wife said I spoiled the kids, said my house was too small, that I was too intense. The last time Ethan came, he brought a Mother's Day card, but he called me Mrs. Caldwell. He was 12, and I knew I wouldn't see him again. And I was right. In the days that followed, Luna left paper flowers on my porch. Mateo drew a cat with the caption, "Rufus and Mrs. Irene, best friends forever." I started caring for the garden again, set a table out on the porch, painted the doorframe, but it was still hard. The pain of being left behind doesn't go away with kind neighbors. There's an emptiness no one else can fill. The space where the people who truly know you are supposed to be. The ones who remember your laugh, your favorite meals, your stories told backward and forward. I began to wonder where I'd gone wrong. Was I too strict? Did I love in a way that wasn't understood? Elena stopped by to chat. She talked about simple things, the weather, the kids' school, the scent of her new soap, and I listened. Sometimes I responded. Sometimes I just smiled and said I was fine, but I wasn't. I still waited for the phone to ring, hoping it would be my son, saying he missed my apple pie, hoping Ethan would send a note. That someone from my family would say, "We need you." A phone call did come, but not like I'd imagined. It was my son. "Mom, we need to talk." His voice was serious, distant, like a duty, not a gesture of love. We set a time to meet on Friday. He said he'd bring his wife. That's all he said. No details, no warmth, no, "I miss you." I spent the next few days nervous, cleaning every inch of the house. I baked oatmeal cookies, Ethan's favorite, even though I knew he wouldn't be coming. When Friday came, I wore my nicest skirt, Fastened my hair with the brooch James gave me on our last anniversary. They arrived right on time, polite smiles. Quick glances. After 5 minutes of small talk, she said it straight. Irene, we think it might be best if you considered a place with support, a retirement home. My son didn't meet my eyes. You're alone here, Mom. It's not healthy. Didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just served the cookies. They didn't take any. Then they left. And I sat back in that armchair. But something had shifted. I didn't feel broken. Just tired, but strangely alive. That's when Rufus jumped into my lap, and Luna's paper flower, forgotten in the corner of the chair, slipped to the floor. Looked at it and thought, now they're worried? After all these years? Or do they just want to ease their guilt? Hand off the burden of caring for an old woman who really never asked for anything. But I'm not fragile. Not yet. I have my home, my roof, my routine. My body still works. My mind is sharp. I know how to take care of myself. I've lived long enough to know my limits, and to know no one gets to move me out of my life unless I say so. Maybe I still belong somewhere. Not where I once hoped, but here, in my home, with myself. The day after Daniel's visit was silent. I woke up early but sat at the table for a long time, just watching the steam rise from my coffee cup. The house felt bigger, emptier, a kind of emptiness that echoed inside me. As I loaded the laundry and swept the yard, old thoughts started creeping in like weeds. Why did things end up this way? Why did my son pull away so much? I knew time changes relationships, but there was this constant ache, a feeling of always waiting for emotional crumbs. And the worst part? I'd learned to settle for them. It was already late when I started, feeling unwell. My vision blurred and everything spun. I tried to grab the armchair, but I collapsed. I couldn't get up. It was Elena who showed up. She found it strange that the porch was so quiet and walked right in. The door was ajar. Irene, are you okay? She called out, just before finding me on the floor. Ernesto was there soon after. Elena said she would call an ambulance, but he insisted on driving me straight to the hospital. I could barely protest in the car. In the ER, the tests showed mild dehydration and exhaustion. Nothing serious, but it shook me. I felt fragile, almost foolish, like I was becoming a burden. There's no need to apologize, Elena said, holding my hand. Sometimes we take care of everyone else and forget about ourselves. Now it's your turn to be cared for, my dear. I just nodded, eyes brimming with tears. Back at home, as Elena fluffed the pillows and Ernesto made some tea, I murmured, "Thank you. For everything. For coming in. For knowing." "We just felt something wasn't right," Elena said. "So we came. That's all." That night, I slept better than I had in a long time. 2 days later, I wanted to give something back. I made coffee and a fresh cornmeal cake and invited the Morales family over. The kitchen was filled with that warm smell of a lived-in home again. We laughed, shared stories. The kids ran around the yard like they were my own grandkids. Later, when I was alone, I sat at my desk, took out some paper and a pen, and wrote a letter to Ethan. I didn't blame him. I didn't complain. I just wrote what I felt, like stitching memories into words. I sealed the envelope, added a stamp, and dropped it in the mailbox. I wasn't expecting a reply, but writing it felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. Dear Ethan, I don't know if this letter will surprise you, annoy you, or simply go unnoticed, but I felt like writing it, not to ask for anything, not to reopen wounds, just to let you know that I think of you, always. I remember when you were little and asked me to tell the same story 5 times in a row, and I did, like it was the first time. Or how you'd make a face at your porridge, and I'd pretend it was a magical dessert that gave you superpowers. Those memories are still alive in me, even if we barely speak now. Time passed, Ethan, and life pulled us in different directions. I know there were things left unsaid, silences that turned into walls. But even with the distance, my love for you never changed. It just got quieter, maybe sadder, but it's still here. I'm not writing expecting a reply. I'm writing because it helps me. It reminds me of who I am, because before I was a grandma, I was someone who believed words could heal. I still believe that. Take care of yourself. Be kind to yourself. And if one day you feel like visiting, the door is open. No pressure, no expectations, just the simple hope of a hot cup of coffee and a good conversation. With love, your grandma, Irene. The next day, as I was watering the plants, I felt steadier. My body still tired, but my mind clearer. That's when Elena came over with an invitation. Irene, next week we're having story time at Luna's school. The teacher had to cancel. The kids keep saying you look like a fairy tale grandma. What do you think? I smiled. I'm not sure I still know how to tell stories. Oh, that we can make up. Will you come? I stayed quiet for a moment. Then, with a gentle smile, I'll think about it. That night, just before falling asleep, I felt something different, like life was waving at me again, from the porch. The week after Elena's unexpected invitation, something shifted inside me. It wasn't a grand epiphany or a burst of joy. It felt more like a breath. A gentle sigh that made room for something new, or maybe something old. Something of mine I had forgotten. I started the day slowly, but with a different kind of energy. I looked around my house, the same house that had been filled with waiting, with silence, with longing. I decided to open the boxes in the guest room, the ones I always said I'd go through someday. Inside, I found clothes that no longer fit, papers gathering dust, and memories too heavy to leave sitting there. There was a little blue sweater Ethan wore when he was small, and things James insisted would be useful someday. As I touched them, my eyes welled up, but for the first time, it wasn't just sadness. There was gratitude for what we'd lived, and peace, in letting go, started separating. What no longer served me, in every sense. With each donation bag I filled, it felt like I was shedding pieces of the past I had carried for too long. I kept only what still touched my heart: a photograph, a marked-up book, an old letter. The rest I released. And with every item that left my home, a part of the woman who had merely been surviving left too, that's when the doorbell rang. I opened the door with my hands full of papers and my heart full of surprise. Grandma? It was Ethan. He was standing there, with teary eyes, the lost look of a little boy, and a slightly squished bouquet of grocery store flowers. I got your letter, he said softly. Would it be okay if we spent the day together? I nodded, speechless. And he came in. The scent of his cologne brought back so many memories. In that young man, I saw a piece of my son Daniel, and something new too. Maybe a chance to reconnect. No promises, just presence. Not long after, Elena arrived with Luna and Mateo. They ran toward me as if they knew it was going to be a special day. Ethan blended right in, kneeling on the floor to help Mateo with a puzzle like no time had passed. Watching them together felt like stitching a piece of my past back into place. We spent the whole day together. We baked a cake, drew pictures, told stories, and even laughed out loud, something my house hadn't heard in a long time. At one point, Ernesto dropped by with fresh bread, like he always does. He stayed for coffee and brought a jar of jam. He'd made himself, said it was sweet enough to heal a tired soul. And he was right. In that simple circle of unexpected people, I felt whole. Maybe not complete. Some wounds were still there, but whole, and that was enough. At one point, Ethan mentioned that Daniel had suggested I move into an assisted living home. Said we could talk about it calmly. I took a deep breath and replied with the firmest voice I could find. My place is here. I'm fine. I still have stories to tell, cakes to bake, and people to love. I don't need a new home. I just needed to find myself again inside this one. He didn't argue. He just nodded, eyes glistening. And in that quiet moment, I felt seen, truly seen, for the first time in years. A few days later, I accepted Elena's invitation to visit Luna's school. Reading stories to those children felt like stepping back in time. I sat on a little wooden chair and began to read, and in their wide-eyed wonder, I saw the same sparkle I once saw in little Ethan. And when Luna called me Grandma Irene, in the middle of story time, something stirred in me I can't quite explain. It wasn't just pride. It was belonging. At the end of the activity, she hugged me and whispered, "Everyone here wishes they had a grandma like you." And I believed her. I went home with my arms full of crayon drawings and my heart lighter than it had been in years. I started making small changes, left the curtains open, planted new flowers in the window, swapped talk radio for music that made me want to dance. I take care of myself like I never have before. I listen. I respect myself. And for the first time in a very long time, I love myself. Ethan still keeps in touch. He sends messages now, sometimes photos from places he visits. We don't have all the answers, but we have something new, a fresh start. And that, on its own, is everything. Today, when I sit at the table with Luna and Mateo, and they ask me to tell them a story, I realize life sometimes takes a long, winding path just to bring us back home. Not the one made of bricks and walls, but the one that lives inside of us. I don't know what tomorrow holds, but today I'm happy, and that's more than I ever thought possible. Thank you for listening. If Irene's story resonated with you, if it touched your heart, please subscribe to the channel for more heartfelt stories of women who rose above their struggles, found strength in their scars, and rediscovered who they truly are.